Hi, I'm Prassenjit, and welcome to Insights by Social Friendly. Before we begin our subject today, I'd like to wish you, your family, and your friends a safe passage through this very difficult crisis that we're in. Through this video, we're trying to provide small and medium business owners with a plan to help get their businesses through this very difficult time and try to see how they can emerge as winners. As business owners, I feel it is our own responsibility to prepare our organizations for the new world that we're about to enter and think above and beyond the crisis. So without further ado, let's begin our subject at hand. I've created a few slides which I'll be putting up on this video, so that gives you more clarity. So the big question that we are faced with is, how do we help get our businesses through this crisis, not just surviving, but how do we emerge as winners? That is the pressing question. So according to me, the first step is to identify and anticipate the financial impact that our businesses are going to face because of this crisis. Now, this impact is what we'll call the gap. Without knowing the gap, it's like we're trying to assemble a puzzle with a lot of missing pieces. Before we even know what it looks like, we just cannot plan accordingly. The idea is to compare where we were before the crisis hit us and where we are today. So this herein is the gap. We need to use whatever data we have at hand. It may not be enough, but we need to use that. We just need to put some thought and modeling and find what's going up, what's going down, what are our customers saying, what are our suppliers saying, what sort of traffic is directed at the business. And we need to compare this data with our early data that we possess, and that is our gap. The decrease, the degradation of traffic, revenue, business, and customers. Now that we've identified the gaps, it becomes crucial to try and find ways to fill the gap and make our businesses sustain and even try and maximize the output as much as possible. It may seem very generic, whatever I'm saying right now, but in times like these, I've found it becomes very important to focus on the fundamentals and the basic, and then slowly build the bigger pieces. Like we discussed earlier, we need to first find the gap and then try and find ways to fill this gap. So to do this, I've come up with a 3-approach model wherein we look at 3 aspects and find ways from each of them to try and fill this gap. The first and the most obvious one being revenue and marketing adjustment. So that's just the absolute basic, and it should make sense to everyone. We need to look at what revenues we know will be impacted, things that are in-store, in-person transactions. But the important thing here is to understand and reflect if they're going to be gone for good or if it's just a passing phase. Then we need to try and figure out what revenues might not be impacted. Certainly online revenue, because when you put everyone at home, people are going to be hooked onto their devices, their TVs, be it their phones, their iPads, and they're going to be looking at social media, e-commerce sites, and all sorts of things. So that to me is a huge opportunity. And if my business wasn't taking advantage of those, I'd be rushing towards them. Although I'd like to warn you that social media and the digital space is already saturated as it is. So just trying to get in this game right now may not be that beneficial, but still we have to try, right? Because all the customers that we're looking to acquire are there. And this is precisely why the marketing resource allocation becomes really important. At times like these, we shouldn't really be putting money into situations that just aren't going to happen. Now we come over to the second part, which is the expense reduction. This is the other obvious one. Looking at unnecessary expenses and squeezing and trying to use that money to do better stuff. Now we need to look at what about the suppliers. First, we need to understand the downstream. If our suppliers are having problems with their supply chain or their value chain, that's going to impact our own delivery. And then we need to look at the opposite side of the thing. Our suppliers and our vendors are as much willing to work with us as we are willing to work with them. So look at this as an opportunity to ask for flexibility in terms of credit, in terms of deliverables, because these things are going to be very crucial. So at times like these, it becomes very important to keep communicating up and down your supply and value chain. If we're efficiently communicating with our supply chain, then we'll have a better idea as to what the financial impact of that is going to have on our business. Finally, we need to talk to our direct and non-direct customers, get their feedback, get their questions. I mean, if they're facing any troubles, if there's any issues in our operations, and try and fix those, because at times like these, you don't want to become an added nuisance for your customer. That brings us to the final part of our plan. So far, we've talked about how to find the gap, and talked about ways we can fill this gap and try and sustain and even overcome these obstacles here. So now it becomes essential and crucial to direct our marketing efforts and the marketing dollars from activities that are not driving any revenue for us and put them into activities that are or have the potential to. So the most obvious thing to do here would seem to be put the marketing dollars online, because all of us are at home as it is and our online content viewership has gone up drastically. But there's a major downside to this. Because there's so many of us online at the same time and there's so many conversations happening, so many chatter happening, it is very difficult to get your brand message across to the right set of customers and your high value customers. So what I'm trying to say is just your mere presence online is not going to be enough. The brands and businesses need to be doing more. It just cannot be an online thing. First of all, it needs to be an amalgamation of online and offline. You need to have a clear and a very clear and strong messaging. You need to create your own niche with your own niche segments. So these are very important things if you want to get your message across, because all the brands are online. I mean, everyone is trying to get their message across, and if you are just a small drop in the sea, then your message gets lost. So what we need to understand here is that despite all of the challenges that this situation brings us, it also gives us something incredibly valuable, and that's time. I know it may sound weird, but it's true. It's given us time to learn, introspect, and leverage it across 3 different areas. First, we should think about it strategically, like what this crisis is going to do to the industry that we're in. What's my strategic position? And are there any adjustments that I should be making to my overall strategy? Then we need to think about the brand messaging and the positioning and repositioning. Just like you, several other businesses will be looking to seek out customers for similar products or services. And what's going to separate you is your brand identity and the positioning. So it's very important to have a clearly defined proposition and understand your high value customer segments and know where to find them during this difficult time. So with this, I'd like to wrap up this video here. And if you feel there's more that you would want to know, feel free to reach out to me. My email's here. So in the end, I'd just like to say that no situation is permanent, and this too shall pass. But what's important is to stay calm, stay relaxed, and taking it easy. Take it easy, guys. Take it easy. Take it easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels drive you crazy. Lighten up while you still can. Don't even try to understand. Just find a place to make your stand. Take it easy. Thank you.